ZvT or whatever. One thing that sucks about it is that all my really cool teacups, I should have showed you guys. I'm going to show you guys my teacup after this game. All my cool teacups are really small. Teacups are small. It's only downside. Anyways, we are into this TVZ. In the top left, there's the blue Zerg. We have Kaizi Sola. Kaizi Gaming. Never not hear the GSL announcer. In the bottom right as the red Terran, also for Kaizi Gaming. It's time. I feel like maybe the Korean settings are a bit different. Let's try that. Let me know what the sound levels are. Alright, so, if you guys have not been here the entire time, if you're the Europeans waking up right now, happy Thursday. If you're the Americans who are staying up late with me, or I guess Pacific Coast isn't so bad, and you're like, oh, I didn't watch the North Americans, North Americans are stupid, Koreans are cool. Well, alright, I guess, sure, whatever. Point is, if you don't know what's going on, it's TSL qualifier. There's already one Korean qualifier for TSL 6. We're parting, Dream, and Armani and Ragnarok were able to make it through, so that's why they are not playing today. They're already secured. Today, we will find out 4 more Korean qualifiers, as the Korean bracket is not global, and there's 3 Korean qualifiers. So 12 Koreans are guaranteed in, whereas the North Americans and the Europeans have to share their side of the 12 players. It is only a single elimination bracket as well, guys, so whoever loses here has one more chance to make it through. With 4 more fantastic Korean players making it through today, theoretically, the last qualifier gets a bit easier for those who really should make it through. But that always is a, theoretical thing, and in practice, it doesn't necessarily make you feel any better. It's your last life when you're playing, 24 hours from now is the last Korean qualifier, because tomorrow and today has just got way too confusing for the time zone. Time already going for some Reaper harassment, but also already going for a fast 3rd command center. This is the greediest 3rd command center you can do. It's without a factory. So the factory provides even just the bare minimum when it comes to Hellion production, means that you have maybe even 2 Hellions, right? But that's still a decent amount to help with Lings if they suddenly were to appear for some reason. And it's also an okay number to actually get in the map and do a little bit of scouting, because Reaper's supposed to die when speed finishes. But if, like Solar is doing here, you delay your speed, then that Reaper is actually the only scouting tool you'll need, and perhaps Time figured this out. I think it's a bit in meta right now for the Zerg players to do this, but he actually has not gone into the main base. So he doesn't know that speed's going to be severely delayed, but around 320 now, I think he's already like, hold on here. So, regardless, the Hellions aren't necessary. There's nothing happening. It is a case of whoever is being greediest, and while they both have been a little greedy in some aspects, it feels like Time is getting away with the greedier build. Solar hasn't really identified that quite yet. This Overlord in the back right can definitely get some scouting done. Once it sees the reactor still on the barracks, it's going to have a good idea of what this is. It could be a typical 2-1-1. That's going to drop at 5 minutes, so it does want to get a little bit closer to that timing of the factory or starport. Unfortunately, it won't be able to do so. I mean, Time knows that the barracks being revealed reveals a certain thing, a certain number of things, but he still didn't really want to show the rest of his Marines. And the Overlord is forced to dip away. So Solar, he may just do the typical 2-on-1 response with which is to drone up until about 440, then make Lings. But that's really not so bad. He will still get to a good drone count, and then around 5:15, 5:30, he'll be like, wait a second. And then check back in. In fact, he might already know, with the lack of supply depots, is a funny thing that can sometimes tell a difference of the build orders, that his opponent's going for that 3rd CC. And he also might just figure it out, because while Beyond might be doing a lot of 2-on-1s right off of 2 bases, I would say that this was more of a standard thing to see, the fast 3rd CC and the 2-on-1. Well, that Ling finally scouts for sure. The 3rd CC. A couple of Lings were being produced, but since the 211 is only delayed by 3rd CC, which is 400 minerals, granted, it actually only delays the drop by about 30 seconds, as we can see here. So 211 off of 2 bases, hits at 5 minutes, should hit at 5 minutes. And then the 211 off of 3 CC actually can hit at 5:30. Actually, Ling's getting into the 3rd base is a really nice touch. Couple SCVs going down. And meanwhile, back at home, the number of Lings that Solar sacrifices to do this run by is actually not necessary back at home if he plays his cards right. His queens are properly protected, which is a little bit dangerous. Two of them goes down, actually.
Apparently you are doing something right.
2 of them go down for the price of, what, about 1 full medevac worth of Marines. Fair game, right? Fair game. Time, the mineral exchange I think is pretty fair. 300 minerals for the queens. 8 times 4. 8 times 4. What did I say? 8 times 4. 8 times 50. Alright, so I guess a little bit more expensive for the Marines. But anyways, am I doing the math right? You know what? Why did I try doing this at 1 in the morning? I don't know why I tried doing this. The point is, like, the queens would be spreading creep. They'd be helping to transfuse each other. Well, time has 8 less Marines to actually do more harassment with. Which is usually more so what you're looking for with these builds. It's not necessarily a big, powerful initial drop. The idea is that most pro Zergs will defend your initial drop, but it can give you a little bit of that control on the map. So that your follow-up's a little bit better. Thank you, Liliak, for the 7 months. It's always a good day when you got ZG casting some top-tier Korean StarCraft 2. It is something I do miss. It's definitely a Korean fangirl that I have had to relinquish that title, that description, that descriptor, since I don't cast much Korean stuff anymore. I miss it, though. Oh, no! Time was not paying attention. He had a long time to actually pay attention, too. That's very unfortunate. I don't know what he was looking at. Maybe he, like, clicked on... Maybe he, like... I have a suspicion as to what happened, but I'll talk about it in a second. Big Ling run by into the natural and 3rd of time. The SCV pool seems to be fairly competent at defending this. 11 SCVs in total, plus the initial run by that happened earlier. Okay, 15 going down. That's a lot worse. And then time, having lost so many Marines on the front lines, does not have a very good follow-up push. Solar is tearing time apart in this game. Time not going to find any success in the natural either with the medevac drop. So my suspicion is what happened here, by the way, since it took so long for a guy like Time, specifically, like Time's very fast, to see that was either straight up mistake, you know, that happens, or maybe what happened is that it was all in one control group, which it probably was. And when you double tap, it goes to like the presence of your army that's larger, right? So maybe he double tapped to go back to like the action. He was like, oh shit, I'm under attack, but it put his camera over here as opposed to over here. That's my guess. But losing those Marines was really quite bad for the follow-up push. He wanted to do more damage. He wanted to at least stay in place longer. Instead, he had to fall back. Solar is already up to a hive. I mean, damn, that is fast. Solar has played such a great game that, well, the supplies don't look that bad, right? You're like, oh, did Time really have such a bad game? It looks fine to me. Well, pacing, guys, pacing. Solar has the map with creep. He's got a lot of bases, so this sacrificial one might not be a big deal. In fact, he's going to clean this up, or at least force it to lift off and leave. Luckily, Time can do that. So he's got creep, he's got bases, he's got 90 workers. He's already on Ling Bane Ling Hydra, already getting a Viper. Not sure if he's going to need it, but he already got one. All of the upgrades on their way for Solar. And he's going to be working on his way to Lurkers soon. So unless this push from Time can do some fairly significant damage, Solar's going to run away with this game. But it is worth noting that Time, supercharged as he was on fast 3 bases, very quickly into a 4th, really isn't so poorly off than the engagements made him look. Engagements definitely did not look pretty. The 2-2 is about to finish up. Time already grabs that base, and this base also seems like it is going to fall. He's going to use a handful of Marines to kind of check that out, and actually realizing, oh, wait a second, hold on. I'm going to clean this one up too. Solar is going to have to give that away. So, all right, no longer has the bases to support those 90 drones. 91 workers. Actually, I mean, it's 10 minutes. It's only 10 minutes. It feels like this game should be 14 minutes, but it's only 10 minutes, so I guess he still has a lot of mining to do. But he does want these extra bases. He wants to have the map. His creep spread certainly still is looking good to the middle of the map, but certainly lacking on the right side. Part of the reason why he's had to give this up. Double center towers to help out against the run-bys and time by killing 2 bases for the price of nothing. It was basically free. It's looking a lot better. But Solar has now completed all of those upgrades. We're actually close to it. Not quite on the Lurker speed burrow, so loses 1. But here come the Ling, Baneling, Lurker, and the Viper. Parasitic Bomb, or rather, Blinding Cloud, not looking that important. But I think just the surprise factor absolutely is. And time goes from a standard even supply to plummeting down into 120 against 150. But thanks to his planetary, he might just be able to hold on. Have to cancel his would-be 5th base, and he does do that. But it is going to be tough from here on out. I'm not even sure time... No, I think time... Yeah, okay. Alright, yeah. It's tough to face off against Lurkers, honestly. It just is. So I was looking at the drilling claws, and I was like, does he really want that? I think he does. But he is also still producing 2 tanks at a time, 2 liberators at a time. He is going to hold, but man, it looked awfully scary. If Solar maybe did have burrow speed in the Lurkers, maybe there'd be a bit of a different story. Seemed like it was a last-second clutch, and a lot because the planetary was there to support him, but that was... almost Solar's time to shine. It still was. I mean, he's now bullied time back, forced him to regroup, and with him having to reinforce, there's not really any action elsewhere on the map. So Solar continues to just creep spread off to the left side, as well as saturating that base to the left and getting this base back up to the right. And before time even knows it, there might be creep spread all the way to the right side of the map too. Little tiniest drop. Doesn't really need big Benevax, does it? Parasitic Bomb was even used on that one. That's a lot of Lurkers, but it's also a lot of tanks. Behind a wall with ghosts here. I really thought that time would have a bit more of a problem getting to where he has. But he's managed to pull through. Now, he's at a point that looks pretty nice. Very defensive. All the sack defense here. Liberators and tanks look wonderful. But he does have a bank, and that's where Solar's extending his, or keeping his lead, I should say. He's keeping his lead in that bank. Eventually, Time might also get his own bank. But if he's going to get a bank, he needs his 5th base. Snipe's going down. To the left side, Time was, I guess, kind of surprised Solar over there, but there weren't enough snipes to actually kill the Lurkers, and there are other Lurkers even needed. Time has so much army that's defending other choke points that perhaps not enough was on the front lines over to the right side, or maybe it was just enough. The last few remnants of the Terran army coming through. A scan goes down to try and reveal the Lurkers for more snipes. But if the Lurkers are in range of the Ghost and actually have vision on the Ghost, then the Lurkers will actually stop the snipe. Exactly what happened right then and there. You're gonna need a little bit more, or you're gonna need Cloak and hope to kick out the Overseer. But Solar, once again, looks like it was a promising initial start to the break, is not quite able to do so. Time continuing to be a wall here. I mean, not the strongest wall I've ever seen. It's dented, it's cracking. It's bending a little bit. You're a little bit concerned. It's like those old houses from like the 1700s where like the middle of the second floor is like kind of like dipping, and you're like, I don't know about this one. But it's still a hardwood floor, so you're gonna trust it. That's Time right now. I guess it's better to bend than to break. Repair that base up, turn it into a planetary. Does he have the extra upgrades for it? Nah, not working on his extra engineering base upgrades yet, but that makes sense. There's been so many engagements, he has never been able to bank up. But Solar also taking another fight that might not actually be able to break time. I don't think it will. The last two Banelings not going to connect with that planetary. And with the SCVs repairing it, it did seem like it was relatively safe. That was, again, a clutch hold. And actually, that one wasn't just... I mean, clutch might be too strong of a word. That was a good hold from Time. And that might have been just a simple overextension from Solar. The previous two fights, it's like it made a lot of sense. It looked really good for Solar. Didn't actually kill Time. Okay, makes sense. That one was a little more questionable. I think Time was actually a lot better set up for that than any previous fight before. And Solar, for, I think, one of the first fights in this game, actually was the one to dip down in supply first. But it is still an even supply. And still got a lot of mining here to do on Romana side. Time might have gotten the middle right base, but Solar continues his expansion process to the bottom left. And still has these bases, I guess, as backup, although Time is trying to clear that up, clearing up some creep tumors. He's got nukes going, which is absolutely amazing. He's bothering to get the EMP upgrade to help out against the Infestors and Vipers, which I absolutely love to see. Time really just... willing to play this type of game, which not a lot of Terran players are willing to do. They're a lot more active, and while he did try to be active, he tried all the normal Terran versus Zerg things. It didn't work out. He has swiftly moved into late game TVZ, as swiftly as Solar did. I really thought he was going to stumble behind and then just be outpaced. I said it before, I'll say it again. And instead, he's able to hold the line. And by holding the line, he might eventually make Solar so frustrated that Solar makes a really big mistake. The last fight was not great for him, but it wasn't bad either, so that wasn't the mistake I'm talking about. But if Solar's really just like, what the die, Terran, god damn it, die, come on, man. Then he might start throwing away a lot of lurkers. Because this is the type of army that if you misjudge it, to retreat from it is kind of difficult to do. Not because the Liberators or tanks have to siege up, it's quite annoying, but because of the snipes now. If the lurkers go, oh shit, I don't mean to do this, they're not going to get away because the snipes will tear them down. So you do have to be pretty careful about how you engage. You can kind of get away with a little poking and prodding, a little bit of like a, oops, I didn't want to actually engage here. You can get away with it a little bit against this type of army, but not as much as you used to without these ghost snipes. Time even making sure to clear up any Overlord presence so Nidus rooms will no longer be a threat. That was a very quick cleanup on the Nidus room, by the way, which it almost looked like he expected it. He was like, of course a Nidus room goes to my natural at 17.5 minutes. Dum-dum? Of course I knew that. I said, okay, alright, fine. My bad. Thank you, Foss97 for the 4-month resub. Ghost is figured out. I love the EMP. I mean, just like, why not, right? Time is a very fast player. Queen's going down to the top right. Sometimes in these late game scenarios, the Zerg player loses queens, and then all of a sudden, 20-25 minutes in, they're like, wait, why don't I have any queens? Why don't I not have any larvae? So that's worth keeping track of. A nuke to the left didn't really hit very much, but these snipes are hitting an awful lot. That is the vision war between lurkers and ghosts that currently Time is winning as Solo needs to reposition his units. Again, just the dying EMP. If it hits anything, it's worth it. There's not a lot of things in the Zerg army that are vulnerable to EMPs. Like a Protoss army, where an EMP is invaluable. Like, of course, you're going to try and get an EMP out before the ghost dies. The Zerg army is like, well, maybe I'll hit the one Viper they have. Making sure my cat doesn't turn off the computer. Still a wall around this section, so I haven't missed too much. More nukes are on the way. Solar aggressively expanding is not going to fall behind. A lot of times when a Zerg player, or any player I should say, any player is taking the map and they start to actually get pushed, they kind of start just thinking, okay, defend the push, defend, 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 instead of taking the expansions while they can. I mean, if Solar eventually does have to give up this space because the push is too strong, then if he's managed to slip this one by, he can kind of, you know, go around the clock, if you will, and just be like, well, now I go down to the 6 o'clock position. That's where I'm going to defend. That's where I'm going to macro. It's not as big of a deal if I lose 12 o'clock. I mean, it looks like if you will be losing 12 o'clock, and if you lose 12, you lose whatever this is. The minute hand, I guess? Minute hand on 12 o'clock? Wait, the minute hand's longer. You know what I mean. He's gonna lose 2 bases. Again, that's just what happens in our mana side. 2 bases, a bit easier to get after you get 1, also a bit easier to lose after you lose one. Corruptor's now involved in the fights. Gonna take out some of these medevacs. Actually, not too bad. Medevacs and Liberators going down. His time is focusing elsewhere. He's got a nuke going down, and he's dealing with a mass run by. Look how many ghosts are up here. My goodness. Fortunately, they don't die too quickly to tanks. The tank fire is doing more damage than anything else. Takes out the Overseer once again. Nuke in the bottom left does go off, but doesn't actually hit anything except the hatchery. Takes quite a few nukes to actually kill an entire building. And, I guess that means that Solar got a better trade there. He killed a lot of those air units. That's a lot of gas going down. Finally turning around him, however, as the ghosts come back to the front lines, the Corruptors need to be very careful about how they engage, as snipes are super deadly. I did not expect this being game one of today, guys. I really didn't. Especially when it looked like Time was just kind of having a slow start. It was kind of shaking off the rust almost with his opener, with his drops. I was like, oh, okay, maybe just go into game two. Let this one go. No, he is playing... They're both playing extremely fast, extremely good late game TVZ. And by fast, I don't just mean these snipes, the last minute EMPs, the APMs. I'm meaning just like their ability to expand and attack and defend. And they're constantly not just doing multiple things, but they're clearly thinking about multiple things as well. It's very impressive stuff. I mean, think about all the games that you have played, where you just like, you play the game and you think it's like 1,000 miles a minute, and then you look at the replay and you're like, oh man, I could have expanded 1 billion times over. What is wrong with me? Well, these guys are actually doing it. The planetaries coming down would have been beautiful, but I'm not sure they will. Time might be a little bit too disjointed, or I think he is. Okay, no, he isn't. I'm wondering if that was mass lings, if that would have been better than the banelings and the hydras, which awkwardly go into a planetary, by the way. Don't do very much. Still not bothering to get building armor or high auto tracking. Building armor does not help against banelings, which is a load of bull. That's fine though. But it does help against lings, cracklings, and ultras were in play, obviously, to help against that. Hydras, like everything else, right? And high auto tracking does help against everything. It's extra range in the planetary. But anyways, that nuke's not going to go off. A big attack to the middle of the map, hoping to find Time's weak spot. Time has so many tanks and liberators. To say there is a weak spot would be disingenuous, but there are weaker spots. How many ghosts does he have? What the hell? 17 ghosts. Is mass ghosts going to be the new army? Oh my goodness, his army is tank ghost. Guys, I think it'd be tank ghost liberator if he didn't lose a bunch recently. He has 17 ghosts and 16 tanks. That is his army. That's why I was wondering, around here, I was wondering if pure Ling would have done better, because they jump on top of tanks and usually make them look quite silly for being alone. Lings and ghosts have a complicated relationship, though, where, like, Lings aren't good against ghosts, but then you can get so many more Lings than ghosts, right? But, usually you're talking about, like, 7 ghosts, not 17. So, I don't know. Solar is trying his best to find the openings when he can. Actually finds an opening to the bottom left. He's going to stop Time from taking these bases, at least for now. And by taking the very bottom left, Solar may have just taken the space away from him by taking away the minerals, which is the best type of taking away your opponent's base. He hasn't covered mine in the gas yet, and I think he does need to. Gas bank's looking a little bit low, but also, again, take it away from your opponent. Solar coming in from multiple directions. This swarm is going to try and break the defense of Terran. It is like a StarCraft 2 campaign mission right now where you're just giving ghost tank. Matt was like, that's all we have, sir. Please make the best out of it. And you're sitting there in the campaign mission being like, no way this will ever happen in the real game. This is dumb. I hate it. Well, here you go. Here you go. That Horner guy was correct. Ghost tank can make all the defenses against any type of Zerg army. And nuke going down. I don't know how long this Time has known about this, but I think he's known about it for a while. I just can't really do very much about it. He can only spread himself so thin with these siege units. Ooh. Nukes going down. There's so far been on like the peripheral bases, the ones that don't really count. Not so many juicy hits going down, but maybe finally? Nope, he's got bullet drones. Solar, too fast, 5 me. Time is starting to lose concerning amounts of supply without quite having a bank to replace it. He's trying to get that base up so he can get a bank, but the mass lings might have been the answer. Maybe I was right about that. There are so many more lings than there are ghosts. The snipes go down on the lurkers, but then the ghosts need to run away from the lings and need to run away from the banelings. Good target fire there. He's target firing the banelings with his ghosts. Time is using his ghosts as if it was his bio army. Stop it. Stop it. This game is deserving of not only 2 commentators, but also an observer, because I am awfully tired, but that was some pretty sick micro there. At first I thought it might have just been coincidental, but then it was definitely on purpose. Not that it's any more difficult to do it with ghosts than it is bio. It's just not something you usually think about. Usually when it comes to ghosts, they're the last thing you move, because, you know, your bio armor's on 1, tanks are on 2, and then your ghosts are on 3, or something along those lines, right? That's also kind of the order you move things in. So the ghosts are usually lucky to be microed backwards. Well, I'll put it this way. First they snipe, then they run. And while you're running, you're not usually thinking about, like, well, now my ghosts clearly take out the banelings. Like, you don't think about that. But when Time is apparently very comfortable with the idea of tank ghosts, I guess he does think about it. Liberators siege up a little bit late. It's not that they help a lot versus Ling Baneling anyways. And that seems to be the crux of the issue. Time can't really take care of Ling Baneling. I think maybe at one point or another he should have started adding in Widow Mines. But this is a little bit of unfamiliar territory for me. Time has a top right base still mining quite well, and a middle right base still has some minerals, but his problem for a while now has been that he's been mined out. Whereas Solar had taken so many bases, including his own base, Solar's not with a bank anymore. He's also been trading out multiple times, still has a more consistent economy, actually doubling the income right now of Time. So I think the lings are the real problem. The lurkers usually are, but the ghosts make short work of them. This is where a couple of Widow Mines would have popped off 4 or 5 fights ago and really exchanged the resources lost, which, I mean, is still favorable for Time, but I think it could have been even more favorable. Overseal is still available, the ghost will fall, and Solar will take game 1. GG. But I'm not sure what's, it's one of those games where one player didn't really necessarily have